Monarch Brewing was founded in 1890 as the Josef Ladovec Brewing Company in Chicago. In 1892, it was purchased by I.Baumgartel and Charles Stein and renamed the Monarch Brewing Company. Monarch's new owners already owned the Calumet Distillery and wanted to expand into brewing. In 1898, Monarch became part of the United Breweries Companies, along with 12 other local breweries. Baumgartel became chairman of the board of the new combine, and Stein managed the Monarch branch. Monarch had an annual capacity of 150,000 barrels a year and a bottling plant. The new United Brewery managed to hold off failure for a few years by consolidating and cutting expenses, but the parent company was still losing money, and in 1903 it filed for bankruptcy and reorganization. The reorganized company survived until 1920, when Chicago finally went officially dry with the coming of national prohibition. In 1922, it was sold to a new ownership group from Chicago. The new owners included Frank Schrader, Adolph Durian, Joseph Hine, and Henry Rose. And they would run the brewery through the rest of Prohibition and after repeal in 1933. Monarch kept in business during Prohibition by making soda and near beer. Rumors circulated that it was aided by underworld figures looking for breweries to make real beer during the dry years, but such rumors were common for every Chicago brewery. In late 1958, Monarch was sold to former Al Capone Lieutenant Joseph Fusco, the one-time head of Al Capone's Prohibition-era beer manufacturing operation. In 1930, Fusco was listed as public enemy number 29 by the Chicago Crime Commission. Mr. Fusco was indicted with Al Capone in 1931 and charged with 5,000 violations of federal prohibition laws. He had a long record of arrest, but he was never convicted. In 1963, he was identified before the Senate Subcommittee on Investigations as a member of the Chicago Crime Syndicate. That gives you some background on Joe Fusco. Fusco already owned Bohemian Brewing Company in Joliet. At the time of the sale to Fusco, Monarch had a brewing capacity of 275,000 barrels a year, but was only producing about 57,000 barrels. Fusco had acquired Van Merit and Bohemian Club, popular Midwestern brands during the late 1940s and early 1950s. Fusco changed Monarch's name to Van Merit Brewing in 1958 and operated the Chicago facility under that name while closing the Joliet Brewery. It was under the Van Merit name that the old Monarch plant operated until closing in 1967. But here is where the dots begin to connect. Charles Stein was my great-grandfather. My grandmother, Mildred, and her husband, my step-grandfather, Al Epstein, also known as Eppie, associated with several underworld characters from Chicago and later in Palm Springs in the 1930s. Here are some home movie clips from the 1930s taken in Palm Springs, California, at my grandparents' compound. Eppie was an entertainment attorney for MCA, Music Corporation of America. Currently, in 2018, MCA is Comcast. In the 1930s, MCA was the largest talent booking agency in the world, with over 700 clients. My grandparents were also close friends with the Pritzker family, Abe, Fanny, and Jack. The Pritzkers had a law firm, Pritzker, & Clinton in Chicago. step-granddad Eppie's office was down the hall from the Pritzker's offices. Stanford Clinton was their partner. Now, Stanford Clinton represented Joe Fusco, yes, the same guy who bought my great-grandfather's Monarch Brewery, and was general counsel to the Teamsters Pension Board. Over the years, as I dug into the 2,000 feet of 1930s 16mm home movies, I asked the question, who was the connector to the mob between my grandparents? Was it my grandmother with her dad's brewery? Was it Eppie managing talent for MCA that was booked into mob-run nightclubs like the Chez Paris in Chicago? Or was it a combination of the two of them? And I'm not even going to get into the story of John Jake the Barber Factor. That's another video. Let's just say that Jake Factor was also friends with all these folks. This story is sort of a 6 degrees of separation, isn't it?